and welcome back for another episode of Talking Bollocks. Hello, welcome. It's nice to have you back to the show. My name is Howard H. Smith, and I am also lead singer of UK thrash metal band Acid Rain. I also host this here podcast. I also host the official Motorhead podcast, The Motorcast. I also do stand-up comedy, have done for over 20 years and will do as soon as everything opens up again. Been doing a little bit on Zoom, but it's not the same as playing in front of a live audience, that's for sure. Nothing replaces that feeling. So, hello. If this is your first visit to Talking Bollocks, hello. This is a bit of a special. This is all about the movie The Sound of Scars. Now, this has been... Sorry about that as well. Sorry about that notification in the background. There's nothing more annoying. I am going to get rid of that. Yep, there we go. Computer volume is off, so you won't be hearing any more of that. Seems to go on quite a lot in podcasts at the moment. That's because we're all on Zoom and all the rest of it. And anyway, let's get back to the point. This is all about The Sound of Scars, the documentary into the behind-the-scenes goings-on of one of the most interesting bands around, and that is Life of Agony. I've been a fan since the very first day the very first album came out. I walked into a shop that was open then in London called Metalhead, and one of the guys in there knew me. One of them just grabbed me as soon as I walked in and said, "You're going to want to listen to this." And he played... I think within about 2 or 3 songs in on The River Runs Red, I was like, yeah, I'm having this, definitely. And I've been a fan ever since. Absolutely just something completely different. And any band who can put out a debut album that is a concept album about suicide and depression, and it is brilliant, is gonna stand the test of time and is always going to be in my top bands, and they certainly are. Now, possibly one of the only bands with an interesting enough story to actually span a feature film length documentary. Well, this is the band. This is the movie. There are a couple of things I want to mention before I go any further, purely for the regular listeners, of course. And what I always do at this point is usually do about 20 minutes of news that has been going on in the world of metal. But I want to get into the interview quickly, because I know there'll be a fair few listeners who are here for a first time and don't want to listen to my normal jibber jabber, and that's kind of understandable, really. So just to say that there is a new Flotsam and Jetsam single out called Burn the Sky. That is from the upcoming album, which is called Blood in the Water. And this song's called Burn the Sky. And I'm going to include a link in the description of this podcast. So if you see, well, you'll see there's a link there. You can click through and go through. Sounds great. Sounds good. A very good precursor for the new album. So fingers crossed. That's all due to be out with us on June the 4th. The other thing I wanted to mention is, because we're also doing a movie today, an interview about a movie today, is Heavy Metal Hitchhiker. This is a TV program that is coming from Banger Films. That's right, Banger Films, which is the brainchild of Sam Dunn, who is the co-founder of Banger Films. Sounds like a really interesting idea. It's Heavy Metal Hitchhiker. It's an 8 episode original comedy. It's going to be on YouTube, so no reason at all for you not to watch it. The soundtrack sounds banging anyway. Power Trip, Carcass, Municipal Waste, Earthless, Possessed. Then some more Canadian bands, because Banger Films are based out of Canada, which is Exciter, Ken Mode, Protest the Hero, Cancer Bats, all sorts. So anyway, there's also going to be a link to Heavy Metal Hitchhiker in the description of this podcast. Just go to their YouTube channel and you will be able to get, that's youtube.com/BangerTV, but there is going to be a link in the podcast. So anyway, let's get to The Sound of Scars. Leigh Brooks is the man who's behind this project, who very kindly agreed to give up his time on a Sunday morning to chat to me, and it was really easy to get hold of him. We had an absolutely brilliant morning. We had a great time, as you're going to hear, and we just, two big Life of Agony fans. got to talk about Life of Agony and talk about the movie he has just made of Life of Agony. It's a perfect way to start a weekend. And here is our chat. There are links in the podcast to where you can get this. The Sound of Scars. Go find the movie. Very easy to find. It's called soundofscars.com. Couldn't be much simpler. So now, here is my chat with myself and Leigh Brooks.
Hello.
Hello there, Leigh.
Hello, mate. How's it going?
Very well. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. Welcome to Sunday. What a day!
So, are you all set for your first podcast interview?
I am indeed. I have coffee. I have water. I have bollocks to chat. So I think I'm. In good. You're in good company.
You're in the right place. We have started, by the way, because that's usually a question that comes up about 5 minutes in when people realise that we've been chatting. Just to give you an idea of who I am, I run this podcast. I sing in a UK thrash band called Acid Rain.
Yes, you do.
Which I do. Oh, you've done your homework.
Of course.
And I've been a stand-up comic for 25 years. So.
Brilliant.
So basically what we should be doing is basically having a chat. But I also have, as well as Talking Bollocks, the occasional episode of Movie Bollocks comes out as well. So you're right in the sweet spot of between the two.
Ooh.
Yeah, multi-appeal.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent.
Look, I want to start with kind of like the obvious, which is we're both huge Life of Agony fans. Yeah. How did that all begin for you?
It was 1996, and I was working as a security guard. And on one of my days off, I drove to Kingston, went to pick up. I think it was some really crap CD that was at Babylon Zoo, Spaceman. I think it was something like that.
Yeah.
And then I went straight to the metal section. And obviously, you couldn't really hear stuff online. You went by the covers.
Yeah.
And I went by the label, and the label for me was Roadrunner. And the band on this day was Life of Agony, and it was ugly. And I picked up the tin CD.
Yeah.
Had a quick look. I saw Keith at the time on the inside of the of the CD. I saw the artwork, which spoke to me. I read the album track, bought the CD, and I put it on the way home, and I was just fucking blown away by it. It just spoke to me on so many levels. And I was just intrigued. I was like, who is this band? I'd never heard of them. And then I found out a little bit more. Someone then passed me River Runs Red, and they told me the story of that, about, suicide attempts. And it was difficult for me to get into that album at first, I have to say, because weirdly enough, I was used to Ugly. And then when I listened to this album, which was a lot more ferocious, and full on, it took me ages to get into it. I don't know if it was a subject matter at the time. But it kind of, it was a bit much for me, and especially listening to the last track on the album, it was horrendous. Where the kid slashes his wrists and you can hear it dripping away. It was horrible, and it spoke to me, and it took me a while to get into that. But then obviously I did, and I went to see them in 1996, same year. I think they played at the Astoria. And I was blown away again. It was just, the crowd was amazing. The mosh pit was insane. The band was just on fire. And then you've got Keith, this person on the front that really didn't look like he wanted to be there.
Yeah.
But that to me was part of the mystique and the appeal of the band. It was just this anti-front person.
Yeah.
And that's what the band were to me, and they got me through some really dark times in my life.
Well, I think there's a lot to get through there, but firstly, a lot of people will identify with what you were saying there about how particular albums helping you through particular times, because I think it's something. I think it's something that we all, certainly in the metal community, it's something that we all identify with. Also, I was at that show, by the way. So
no way.
Oh yeah.
You spilled that pint over.
I was going to say, if you were working as a security guard that night, you might have tried to throw me out. I was And you're spot on about Keith. And my kind of analogy / theory for that was, I mean, I absolutely love Life of Agony, and I started with The River Runs Red, so it's interesting because I literally the day it came out. But that's not because I was super underground. It was because I went into a Metalhead, which was in Camden for a while, and it was just off Carnaby Street for a while. And I knew the guys who worked in there, and I walked in, and one of them just handed me the CD as I walked in, and he went, "You'd be wanting to buy that." And I was like, "Oh right, okay."
I miss those people. Those people.
Yeah, it's not the same as an algorithm, is it?
No, it's not. When someone handed me Television, Formaldehyde, or Rage Against the Machine, and go, "You're like that." Where are those people now, man? They were amazing. They were my gurus.
I know. I mean, they were our essential workers back in the day.
They were. But I'm clap for them on a Thursday night.
But the point you make about Keith not looking like he wanted to be there, my kind of analogy that I always drew from that was that it was amazing because it was basically a metal band fronted by an indie singer, and there's like this metal band going on, and it literally looks like there's been somebody transplanted from like a shoegaze indie band. Do you know what I mean? To front them.
I absolutely get that.
Yeah, and it was just like, it's really, really, really odd. And I mean, I totally understand about River Runs Red as well, because Ugly is that. Whilst it is, I mean, there's some incredibly moving and touching and disturbing songs on Ugly, but River Runs Red is another level.
It really is.
But it's also it's in my top 5 greatest debut albums of all time. Purely because when you think about a band who were in their early 20s come out with their very first album, and it's a concept album, and it's as heavy lyrically and musically as it is, and it's so complete, it's so completely formed, and the narrative, the way it's done, everything about it is absolutely spot on. I wouldn't change a thing. And for that takes bands years to be able to deliver that kind of thing in their career,
Yeah, completely.
And for them to be able to pull that off on the first album, I was just utterly amazed. And I mean, I have every version of that album possible. The live version, the top shelf version with all the extra stuff, the videos with Keith dancing about with blonde hair, which is just so weird now. And that's where I came from with the band, and so Ugly for me was like it took me a while to get into that because it wasn't quite. Do you know what I mean? The same for the opposite reasons for you, the other way around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly that. It's a funny thing because like I say, when I've got into it and other people's telling me about River Runs Red, it was. I got into it was Seasons, I Regret, Lost at 22. All these tracks, Other Side of the River, just amazing tracks. Let's Pretend. They were well crafted songs. Do you know what I mean? They really were. And to go back to that side of it was as much of a shock as it would have been for the die-hard fans of the first album to then get something that is kind of essentially, I'd say in their ears watered down, but in my ears enhanced in a lot of ways as well.
Yeah,
and that's the thing with the band. They've always gone that way. They've just done what they wanted over the years. They've never tried to ape what came before. And I admire them for that. It's amazing that they kind of kept that through. And I mean, going back to other albums they've done like Broken Valley, I got into that quite late as well. And first couple of listens, I was like on the fence with it, and then it just snapped in. And I love that album now as well. It's always get something out of that band,
Well, I had the same version of Ugly as you did, the tin version. And funnily enough, I remember this is a total tangent, but I was starting out my stand-up career at the time, and I was doing a gig at a place called Bungee's, which was basically a basement gig in a vegetarian restaurant. It was free entry, surprise, surprise. And I turned up to do a show having bought the CD from Tower Records, and I had it with me. And I sat down, and one comedian who I used to gig a lot with, who was bang into his music, had a whole section in his set about John Peel, was the now famous Robin Ince. And Robin Ince of the Infinite Monkey Cage, and works with Brian Cox quite a lot. And he said, oh, straight away, he was like, oh, all right, Howard, what have you got there? I said, oh, you won't be bothered. He was like, no, I want to know. I was like, are you sure it's metal? And he was like, I'm a music obsessive. I was like, all right, fine. So I gave it to him, and he was looking at it and the packaging and everything, and he was like, this is like nothing I've ever seen before. And I was like, look, I was like, mate, it's like nothing you've ever heard either. And he said, wow, I'm gonna hunt this out. I'm gonna get a listen. I was like, okay, cool. And next time I gigged with him, and he was like, wow, Life of Agony, amazing. It's like, it's not metal, and it's not punk, it's not hardcore, it's not indie. I don't know what it is, but I really, really like it. And, thanks for introducing me to it. So it might have been quite handy if you knew all this before you made the documentary. You could have got a nice talking head out of it with him. But, so that was that. Sorry, that was a complete tangent. But before we go to Broken Valley, the next stop on our journey is Soul Searching Sun. Which I don't know about you, but when that came out, I heard that and I was like, oh my God, this is like Ugly and the River Runs Red had a baby who's really cool. Yeah,
definitely. Like Tangerine is an awesome track, man. You know what I mean? There's some bangers on there as well.
Weeds, just the opener, Weeds.
Definitely. Exactly. Desire, amazing tune, cool video as well. Mad story behind that video as well.
Go on. Let's hear it.
Have you seen it? Right. So the video basically is the guy looking really mournful. On an old double bass. Alan's on a double bass. They're dressed in tuxedos. They're in this kind of lounge. It's very David Lynch. There's all these kind of strange characters that were actually, a lot of them were the, family members. They weren't strange at the time, but they were, made to be strange in the video. And there was no Keith in it because, literally a couple of days before, that was when Keith said, I'm out. Well, I don't want to be in the band anymore. And they had to do this video without Mina,
Yeah, I didn't realise.
It's worth seeking it out. It's amazing. It's a really good video, actually. The track's great. I think Alan's dad's in it. The sister, I think, is briefly in it as well. Definitely worth seeking out, and the track's awesome as well. But going back to that point, I mean, that must have been so hard for the band, but incredibly hard for Mina, obviously, to kind of get to that point of, I don't want to be in this anymore. I can't do it. Yeah. Takes strength to do that. Oh, but the peer pressure that would have been around her at the time.
Well, let's face it. You're talking early '90s in a sort of metal hardcore scene. That is about as male as it's going to get. That really, that's as macho as is possible to be. And I totally get it. But then, of course, everything came back together for Broken Valley. Now, I'm interested to hear you say that you've got something, because I've struggled with it over the years, and you mentioning it there, while you were talking, I was thinking, right, do you know what? As soon as this interview's over, that CD's getting pulled out the rack, and it needs reassessing. It needs reassessing.
It's really worth it. It's a cracker of an album, that is, and that was more about the death of Mina's father. A lot of stuff that went into that was, that they actually got back together. We discussed this in the film. They get back together, at Mina's father's wake. And the guys, because obviously Mina and Joey are cousins, and Alan, has known them since the beginning, of time. And that was the first time they'd been in a room together for a long, long time, since they'd split. And it was there where, that was where they, kind of reignited everything again. And they poured all of that, again, it's another term for them. They put all of that suffering and pain that they were all experiencing from that death into that record. So, it's definitely worth going to, like, the day he died. There's a track on there which is obviously about, Tony. It's definitely worth a visit again.
Wow. Well, in which case, I will. I'm definitely going to revisit that without a doubt. And that sort of. Well, it doesn't sort of quite bring us up to date, because Soul Searching. The Sound of Scars is when I heard that there was going to be a Sound of Scars, a follow up to River Runs Red.
Yeah,
it was real mixed emotions. I was.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I was like, oh, great, and also, this is like, please don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
Look, you know what I mean. It's it's more than music.
Yeah, completely. It's you're poking something that's very precious to people when they protected that and actively tried to get you to go back to that. Every year since that came out. So they had to. There was definitely a lot of voices they would have had to have thought through, in order to get that even remotely recognised when people hold that album on such a pedestal, and rightly so.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, when I first heard it, I was just like, oh my God, right, okay, they've done it. I mean, I knew straight away that they'd pulled it off. It's then a case of, right, they've pulled it off, but now I need to go away and listen to it on repeat for months.
Yeah, sonically it's amazing as well, that one. Joey did a phenomenal job on that with Sylvia Massey as well. Sonically, the louder you turn that up, it's one of those albums, it just it feels right the louder it goes.
Yes, yeah. And do you know what? I realised I missed out the place where there's no more pain, because that's a real landmark in the band's career. That was when I spoke to Joey and Mina. I spoke to Joey at the show actually in when they played
Camden.
Yeah, Electric Ballroom. Yeah, I bet you were at that as well, weren't you?
That was the first time that I met them that night.
Oh right, well, and I interviewed Joey, about an hour before they went on.
Amazing!
And I'd already spoken to Mina, who best intro to an interview ever. I did my little speech about I sing in a band and blah blah blah, and straight away she goes, "Well, thank you, Howard. It's good to know I'm talking to an artist." And that's my Mina impression, by the way, and I'm damn proud of it.
Good wonder.
Yeah, fuck off. And
you got the twang down there.
Yeah, and just straight off the bat, she was like, "It's good to know I'm talking to an artist," and it was just like we just eased into this really cool conversation. A lot of people have brought up that interview and said like, "Wow, just like it was really cool," and it was all her. None of it was me. And so yeah, a place where there's no more pain. That tour, that album, Mina has gone through the transition. It's she's reborn. The band is reborn. They're absolutely killing it, kicking ass with that album. Which for me, agree. It came from nowhere. It really did. It was like, oh, they're back, a new album. I was like, okay, fine. Broken Valley was all right. Let's give it. And I was just like, this is like back to this is absolutely brilliant. They're firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was like having it's like having that old friend back. So how did you end up getting to meet them?
Well, I had a ticket, obviously, because, they hadn't played for a while, and It was the Anarchy in the UK tour, which was an amazing concept and poster anyway, 3 dates. And I contacted Mina first of all, got no response, said, look, I'm a filmmaker, I make music videos and, corporate shit and stuff, which I mainly did at the time. And I didn't get a response. And I thought, I'll just try Alan at the same time, and tried him. And he got back, he looked at my reel and loved it. And I said, look, I'm already coming down anyway. I'll shoot something for you guys, get you some content. If you want it, great. If not, fair enough. And he said, yes, straight away. So I went down there with a steady cam. And yeah, it was an amazing night. It was so cool to meet them. I mean, bear in mind, like I said, if you want to talk about high-fiving your younger self, man, I was absolutely high-fiving my 19-year-old self. I'm going, dude, this fucking rules, man. And I was on stage with them. I was climbing the rafters, onto the stack, like throwing the camera into the crowd and back out again. I was everywhere. And that's where I was in the mosh pit with another camera, filming it. And I got this amazing shot of Mina, which I'm really proud of. It looks like something from the 70s, the way it's, real slow-mo shot. The Steadicam's travelling through the speakers, and she's dancing as the lights are going off and the smoke and everything else. It's really iconic. It's an iconic shot that is in the movie, actually. That was it. And then the next day, I was buzzing. I sent the guys a couple of clips, and they freaked out and were like, wow, this is amazing. And I said, right, if you want, I'll come up to Manchester tonight and do the same again. So I did. I went up there with a cameraman and my ex-wife, and we filmed it again, and had a great night up there. I met Mina, and she was like, my God, we connected straight away. There was definitely a connection straight away, which I've always had with her. I think she's awesome. She's actually helped me personally get through some dark times since as well, Yeah. And then all of a sudden, Alan said, do you want to do our next music video? And I said, yeah. And then, I did, it was a place where there's no more pain. Then I did World Gone Mad. Then it was Dead Speak Kindly. And then obviously, moving on, I did Scars and Lay Down as well from the new album. So I've done 5 of their videos, which is insane. And I'm so grateful for that,
That's awesome. So basically, since just that meeting, you've kind of become the official videographer of the band.
The unofficial 5th member of the band, as I would like to call myself. I don't think they would. But there you go.
I think you've earned it, mate. You've earned it. I mean, that's incredible. And so they knew they kind of, inverted commas, had you as a resource. And so having done those videos, it presumably it was the next logical step was to, do a chronological movie of the making of the next album, especially seeing how it's such a crucial release, being a follow up to The River Runs Red.
Well, the film is not, even though it's called The Sound of Scars, that's kind of, as the name suggests, is the, it's the songs from out there. It's everything that encompasses those guys making, records and tools that get people through stuff, and The Sound of Scars, that's it. So it's not about the making of
got you, right, okay, my apologies.
So, and that's fine. It's not, we've not been that explicit with what this film is or isn't, to be honest. And there's reasons for that. This is not, a band film as such, where they did this, they recorded this, they went into the studio, this happened, that happened.
Right.
It's not that at all. This film is about, the families as much as anything, in fact, more so at times. It's the family members, how, things that happened in the past, why certain songs were written, why certain albums were written, the dynamics of the band, especially of those 3 guys, because they were together, from the ages of about 14, 15, they were friends.
Yeah.
Fighting in Alan's basement. So this film is as much, it's not chronological, it jumps all over the place.
Right.
And yeah, it's a ride. It's a ride, and I'm really proud of it. I really am. It's such an amazing story to tell. From Nina's transition to, the why they are the way they are, and the place they came from, which is Brooklyn.
That's and presumably it was. I mean, that's involved. Gathering footage together, a ton of which it isn't yours, and digging stuff out and creating. Presumably, you've then once you know what you're working with, you have to try and find a kind of a narrative and a timeline to kind of put it all together, and then decide how you want to deliver that.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff that possibly can't be covered in the film. There are stories which are amazing, but will probably lend themselves more to podcasts than actually, filming. So, yeah, it became pretty apparent. I did 3 interviews over the phone with each of the band members, from which I derived the main kind of narrative arcs. that I wanted to explore further. And then me and my DOP, Richard Lynch, we got on a plane and went over to New York for 10 days, and that was April 2019. And we filmed, a lot of stuff over there. And then there's a bit more filming in the UK, and then we went back to film all the family stuff in December of 19, just before the pandemic.
Wow.
hit.
That's a perfect timing as well.
Absolutely. If we hadn't have gone then, we wouldn't have got the film that we have. The film is all about what we shot when we went there in December. It's amazing. It really is.
Well, it's funny, yeah, because as soon as you said that, when you said, we did all this filming in December 2019, I thought, I bet I know what you were doing during lockdown.
Exactly that. My work dried up. Everything dried up, as it did for everyone. And that was scary on the one hand, but then that meant that I could sit in my edit suite. Like, I've got a converted garage that I created. It's my edit suite / studio. Yeah. I basically edited the film out of there, and we locked it about, I think, 8 weeks ago. So it was a long edit. It really was. But then I've been working on another documentary at the same time as well. So there's been a couple of projects going in tandem. But yeah, it's been a process. It really has.
Well, funnily enough, I did my first episode of Movie Bollocks. Talking Bollocks has been going years, but I did my very first episode during lockdown, and that was with Peaky Blinders editor Paul Knight. And he was.
I know Paul Knight.
Really?
Yeah. I used to work with him years ago. So I was his avid engineer.
Oh, right, okay. Well, the bizarre connection is his wife is my masseur.
Wow.
Yeah, she's an amazing sports massage and stuff like that. And one day I was going through the house to the massage studio at the back, and I couldn't help but notice a BAFTA on the side, and I was like, oh right, is that yours? And she said, oh that's Paul's. So we had a little bit of a chat, and we met, and he agreed to do the podcast, and then we never got round to it. And of course, as soon as lockdown hit, it was like the ideal time. So I ended up getting Paul. Oh, that's absolutely bizarre.
I think he owns his own kit as well. I think he's always had his own edit suite that he used to go around with. Yeah. For years. But that was
so when I was talking
a long time ago though.
Yeah, so when I was talking to him, he was doing exactly what you were doing, which is, well, everything's dried up, but I can still edit and transfer everything on the online servers and all the rest of it. So essentially I can do this. And his son had always wanted to sort of have a go, but he'd never had time, and he said, well, that's all we've got time to do now. So his son was learning to edit with all these episodes of Peaky Blinders, just like, chopping them up and doing stuff that was like, does he know how lucky he is?
Brilliant.
Yeah, but yeah, amazing timing. Great to hear that that you got all that in, and presumably the next step once you've got all that together and everything else is distribution. I mean, or is that something that you're just doing? You're doing yourselves, or?
At the moment, like we went through the process. We had a couple of offers on the table. Nothing really felt right. Plus, we had to raise, more cash in order to finish it, because, licensing tracks is not cheap. Licensing some of the material is not cheap. And, I'm the sole investor, basically, apart from, my DOP. But, I've ploughed everything into this. So it got to a point where we're like, right, we can't do that anymore. And I don't think we would have, seen anything back from distribution for a while. So, we're doing a limited 2-week run, which obviously starts from April 16th, and we are also using, part of the proceeds to go to 2 charities, All Out and Suicide Lifeline Prevention. And it's just a way that we kind of wanted to get the buzz going now, if you see what I mean, rather than wait for the distribution kind of thing to kick in. We wanted to actually control that ourselves a little bit at the beginning. And because we've done everything else ourselves, Alan's done the art direction, Joey's done the sound mix, Mina has done the score, with Joey's done, some of the score as well. And we've done it all. Like it's almost like when the band started. You know, when the band starts up, you know, you do your demos, you do you know, your shows or whatnot. It's a bit similar to that. So we wanted to control this 2-week run, and then after that, we'll end up looking for a distribution partner. So yeah, it's probably the reverse way of doing it. But, you know, I think it's important for the fans to get to see this quick rather than wait another 6 months or so for the film to actually come out properly. And it's something that we can do, and we're loving it. You know, the actual promotion is great. It's a lot of fun, you know, working out what we need to do and what buttons we need to press. You know, we're creating little vignettes from, you know, behind the scenes stuff at the moment, which, you know, they're proving quite successful at the moment. So we'll keep doing that leading up. So there's a way that the fans can get all this bonus stuff as well, leading up to the, you know, the release of the film on the 16th, which is the day before my birthday.
Oh wow! It's the day after my birthday.
No, oh wow! There he is.
This is
Lions.
Hey, this is getting
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, this is getting a bit odd now. Next, I think
it's serendipitous, my friend. We seem to be brushing, you know, crossing swords without realising it.
I tell you what, if I turn this speaker off and I can still hear you speaking, it means you're somewhere in the block that I live.
I'm in your brain.
Yeah,
I'm in your vortex.
Well, I'm in West London, just so you know.
Whereabouts?
Uh-oh, he's close.
I'm in West London.
I'm in Hanwell.
Hanwell, I'm not in Hanwell.
Right. Okay. All right. I like that. You make me admit where I am, and you say, "No, I'm not in Hanwell."
I'm not in. No, I'm in Margate. I am.
Oh.
So I'm in Margate, as Chaz and Dave would say.
Yeah. That's quite a way away.
It is. I mean, I was, you know, South London born, and I was born in Fulham, and was raised around Portobello Road quite a lot. My dad had a stall down there, so West London, you know, is a massive part of my life. But God, being by the sea in lockdown has been the one. I have to say, I'm glad that I'm not, you know, I'm not in London during the lockdown, because just to get out and about, as well as being, you know, locked into my edit suite, it's been great. It's taken the sting out of the tail of not seeing family and friends, which sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm lucky to be in a part where I'm kind of the very last. I'm the last London postcode out west. After me, it's Middlesex.
Hanwell.
Yeah. So after me, it's Middlesex, and so I'm sort of fairly out in the sticks by London standards. So it's been, you know, it hasn't, you know, well, people have had it a lot worse than me, put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But with all, I mean, presumably you've got all the band involved in promotion and all the rest of it. Yeah. So when, you know, you're heading for a release date, what are your kind of wishes for the movie? You know, for its reception, for its performance.
I think I want, you know, I think if you've ever had anything go wrong in your family, personal life, and you've ever connected with something that's got you through that, it doesn't matter if you're a metal fan or not, you're going to take something away from this. I mean, I just hope people get the heart behind it and the sentiment between the families and forgiveness and, you know, all the crap that leads you to the point of having to forgive someone or let things go. You know, I think we could all learn lessons from that, regardless of whether it's about a band or not.
Yeah.
So I just hope it resonates with people on a personal level, and a bit like the albums did. Do you know what I mean? Everyone, you listen to those albums, you take that into your own life. It would get mixed up in your own emotions and your own experiences and your own, you know, everything to do with you. That becomes you. You know, those tracks become as much you as everyone else that listens to them. And I think I want that for the film, that people watch it and get something, you know, back for themselves. If something resonates in that film for people, then you know, it's done its job. It really has. Yeah,
I get that as well, and that must be. It's kind of weird for a documentary to possess those qualities. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you can touch people, you can reach people emotionally with a dramatic, where you're literally kind of, pressing the emotional buttons, as it were. You know where you're going to hit people and how it's going to hit them. Whereas something like this is you don't know, do you? You're going to be waiting for the audience to tell you what does what for them. Yeah, exactly that.
It's a phenomenal story. It's an incredible story that spans, not just beginning in the 80s. It goes back further. We discuss things that happened in the 50s in Brooklyn, from a generation back.
Right.
So it's literally, how our I think a big takeaway of it, a lot of the things we were discussing is how the generations have changed. So if you think back to your parents and how they were, but then go back another generation and think on their parents and what they were like and the experiences that they had, and then another one. Suddenly gets really brutal the further you go back through those ages. So even though we're living in quite, fucked up times, I think a lot of learning has been done over the years from the generations and things that have happened and things that have gone wrong, that you kind of either go one or two ways. You continue those behaviours, or you stop and you try and make the next generation a little bit better than the one before. So there's things, massive themes going through the film about that. Huge.
Yeah, that is. It's kind of. It sounds like it's almost like a love letter to Brooklyn as well in some ways, because there's clearly that plays a massive role. That's where they're all from. That's where their families are from, and that's where the scene was based as well, that they became part of.
Yeah.
And I know what it's like, having, I signed a record deal when I was 17 in this industry. And so wow. I know what it's like when you're young and you're swept up by a scene and you're at an impressionable age. And what happens at those points in your life can have a huge effect on you. I mean, here I am, approaching 51, and I'm doing the band again and have been since 2015. I mean, if you'd said that to me when I was 15 or 16, firstly, I wouldn't have believed I'd have made it to 50. And secondly, I'd be like, no, you're joking. And it's still, sometimes it hits me that, this thing that started out when I was like 14, 15 years old is now, is still a massive part of my life. And I know that, what they went through at such an early age and getting swept up like they did. Again, that must have had a massive impact, especially on Mina.
Yeah, hugely. She's, by her own words, I think she said this, obviously outside the film anyway, she was not prepared for that. She was not prepared for what was coming. And obviously she was very conflicted with, her own emotions. She also struggled, because most of the lyrics are Alan's as well. So she's singing Alan's state of mind out front, and then people are thinking it's all Mina, but actually it was more Alan that was writing, penning the stories of their lives down. And that was a massive struggle for her as well. And then, obviously, to go from Brooklyn to, from playing L'Amour's, and doing really well, up the coast, and then being plonked straight into Europe on a tour bus.
Yeah.
That must have been, it was tough. It was tough on all of them in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, and I absolutely get that. I mean, I had the luxury of singing my own lyrics. I can, but I absolutely get the disconnect that can cause, and the internal disconnect that can cause by having to communicate the appropriate emotions to words that aren't yours. It's you're kind of appropriating emotion, I guess is the phrase, and that is. Yeah, that's a tough call. And then to be doing that every night in strange countries that speak a strange language, and the food's different, and back in those times it was a lot more difficult to be connected with family and anything familiar. I mean, I remember being on the road, and you wanted to talk to your family, and you have to get a bag of change, and stand at a call box and just keep slamming them in there. It's not easy.
You've seen the film. Joey says that in the film. He talks about that, like freezing cold in Poland at a phone booth, and you can't connect, and then the bus has got to go. And, he said it's the worst feeling in the world ever. And obviously now it's you can pretty much get in contact with someone straight away. But that added layer back then must have been really, really tough. And then especially what Mina was going through, wrestling in like this massive testosterone-fueled scene, and not really feeling that at all. Even though she loved a good fight at L'Amour's, along with the rest of them. But I think there comes a time where I think she definitely wrestled with all of that, and they're very conflicted. It must have been hard, and then being made to feel you should feel grateful for the position you're in, but then obviously the machine around that, I think it's probably a tough machine in general. Where do you get time to appreciate the praise when you're constantly pulled and pushed in different directions?
Yes, yeah, and also that so many assumptions are made about you that are absolutely the opposite of close to being
completely.
accurate.
Completely.
Because that front, as I alluded to earlier, that male scene that I know from their history and having been a fan for many years that Keith used to was the sort of fighty front man, and it was literally kind of like the opposite, if you like. It was kind of like, right, there's this physical fight going on as a front man fighting with the crowd, but then there's that internal fight going on, which is I mean, I'm enjoying this, but I don't really want to be doing it at the same time.
And that's what really connected me with Mina. Really, it was that I couldn't quite work out what was going on. It appealed. That pain that she was obviously feeling was not. That was not fake.
Yes, and when I think that Life of Agony is a band. If I could say, I mean, firstly, what an apt name, what a great name. There's something about them that has always been emotional, right from that very first album, where it's clear that it's like, wow, right, okay, this is a bunch of guys who are dealing with stuff that nobody else is, right off the bat, right there from debut, and that's what they've always been about. And
exactly.
I think that also leads to a real unique fan base, because they're the kind of band where I don't know anybody who's a Life of Agony fan that goes like, oh they're great, get down the pit, it's nice and heavy, No, if you're into the band, you know exactly why you like them, and the lyrics and the topics that they cover is a big part of it.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's a show, when you actually mention. It's funny. There's one guy, a friend of mine that I've known for like 20 odd years, Phil Abel. We used to DJ together, like all hard house kind of techno trance parties years ago. And I didn't know that he was into LOA back then. We only reconnected a couple of years ago. And he was, he's in a band called Silvercord, which are amazing. We reconnected and started talking about LOA. And then it's that thing, as soon as you mention that name, it's almost like there's a silence if that other person knows what you're talking about. And there's an instant connection that I don't get when I talk about Alice in Chains, Nine Inch Nails, any other band that I know, that I love. That band, if you say those three words, Life of Agony, and that other person knows what you're on about, you have a connection that's deeper than a lot of other people straight away, because where that comes from and what that band has done. And that's the same with every single Life of Agony fan that I know. They're amazing. I mean, I know it's a cliche to say they're the best bands in the world, but they are. They fucking love that band. They would die for them, and the things that band has done, the stories that I've heard about how they've got people through dark times, and, they've come out the other side. And River Runs Red, where I think when I first heard that, and it scared me because it was about suicide, it saved people because it's about suicide. People who listen to that album and have stopped themselves from doing something really stupid because of that album. And that is amazing, in itself. And that's why this band has got such a special place in all of our hearts.
Without a doubt. And I agree with everything you said. and I don't want to cheapen it, but I have to say that I have, but I'm going to go to anyway. I have to say, Acid Rain fans are actually the best fans in the world.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Give me my camera. Let's go interview them.
I've got to say that it's contractual. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
but
it was a cliche. I did say it.
No, but it's a cliche. But I think you know, and you rightly addressed that before rolling it out, and I think that. But I think there is a certain validity to it as well, without a doubt.
Yeah. There is.
I mean, I well, when I was talking about how they were, their lyrics have always been like, deeply emotional. I've always thought of them as a hardcore Pink Floyd.
Nice. They'll be very. Mina especially will be over the moon with that. Definitely.
But because there's certain bands out there that exist in isolation. That they're not part of any particular scene, and bands that spring to mind like that are Tool, New Model Army, bands, and in their day Pink Floyd, bands who just do what they do, and like people from all different genres and fan bases like come together, and you go to one of their gigs, and if you go to regular metal gigs or whatever city you live in, you see a few of the same faces, and you're like, oh right, yeah, you see these people at these shows, you see those people at those shows, and then you go and see a Tool, a Life of Agony, somebody like that, and you see people that you don't expect to see. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And like you talking about, completely. Like you're talking about that, your mate who you didn't even know was in the Life of Agony.
Exactly. Exactly that.
Yeah, it's that kind of it's that kind of band that just exist in their own kind of universe, if you like.
Yeah, they do, and they just do something special that people connect with. You know what I mean? Either you're into it or you're not, and they've got as many detractors as they have fans. You know what I mean? We all know that. We all know that. This transition didn't go down too well in some people's eyes. Well, fuck them. You know what I mean? It's like the things that they've done, especially since Mina came out as well. Amazing. I mean, God, what a rise from the ashes. Do you know what I mean? To see that, and then to go back to front your band as Mina Caputo. Wow. I mean, God, that woman's got so much power. She's special. She really is. And the band as well, to accept her and just move forward with the high, the heads held high, and say we're still on the mission. We've still got things to do. It is awesome. And I love that band for it.
Well, I love it. I love the fact that you've got this fucking hardcore ass kicking band, and I have to say, there's the Sound of Scars. I tweeted. I must have hit the right nerve, because both Mina and Alan both retweeted it. But I was just said, the Sound of Scars, great follow up and all the rest of it. But more than anything, it is a fucking ass kicking rock album. It is just, and I love the fact that there's this ass kicking hardcore rock metal band coming out of Brooklyn, fronted by Mina, and the juxtaposition of that. It's like, that's it so shouldn't work.
Totally.
It's just absolutely perfect.
And do you know what my favourite? I think the talking about Floyd as well. Their Floyd moment is "I Surrender" off that album, the last track. Bloody hell! And that just goes off on a tangent. I love that. The outro just goes on for ages. It's awesome. That's one of my favourite tracks that they've done. "I Surrender." Superb stuff.
It is. It's absolutely brilliant, and I'm hoping that one day we get because the River Runs Red. They've done that to death, and by that, and I don't. That's not a criticism of the band. It's like that's what promoters, fans, record labels, have demanded over the years. Yeah. And I'd love to see both albums, performed back to back. And that complete story. I mean, it's almost like it's a rock opera. Do you know what I mean?
You should trademark that.
Yeah,
great idea.
I think it'd just be so powerful.
God, yeah.
And they're the band to pull it off, and you're the filmmaker to pull it off. Come on, there's project 2.
Oh, there you go. There's a sequel, definitely.
Yeah, and that's typical.
Brilliant.
Gee, I should work for a movie company, because that's exactly what would happen, isn't it? Because it's the movie's not even out, and I'm already talking about a sequel. Yeah, that's usually how it goes, isn't it?
Yeah, you should rename it "Talking Bollocks with Some Sense."
Talking sense bollocks. I noticed also from your personal history that obviously you've got form for this kind of project, and of course you did the Terrorvision movie. And
I did, and that was awesome.
And that sounds, kind of similar. Sort of, director, fan gets a chance to go on a road with the band and capture it all.
I have got a form with that. Which is, you're right. I mean, I met Terrorvision in 1994 at Donington. They don't remember it, but I do. And it was Monsters at Rock, just before Biohazard got thrown off the second stage, and I met them there, and I love them. The tape guru, as I'll call them from now on. I went into a shop, and this misty figure appeared with a tape, and it said, "You need this," and it was Formaldehyde, the first album, and I put it on and fucking loved it. So I was a massive Terrorvision fan before they made it big, and then it was How I Make Friends and Regular Urban Survivors, which is a bonkers album, and I went on tour with them. I become friends with them. Yeah, again, same. I was going to go see them. I got in touch with Leigh, the bassist, and then here's my stuff exactly the same. Do you want me to film a bit for you? Yeah, brilliant. And then we become friends. So it's mad. I've become friends with, 2 of my most favourite bands in the world, which is bonkers.
That is, but that's the metal scene. That's somebody who's passionate about music. What it reminds me of is like back in the day when you go to gigs, and you'd always meet the band, because you just turn up at the gig, 4 or 5 hours early. You'd hang around all day and you meet the band. It's just because you talk to certain kinds of fans, and within any sort of musical community, and it's like I've met them because when the gig's on, it's like, right, well that day is assigned to me to hanging out at that venue and trying to meet the band.
Completely.
And that's what we do. And by the sounds of it, you've taken it to the next level.
I took the piss. I really did. I'm pushy like that. But it works. I did Terrorvision's Christmas single, which was awesome. It was me and Lynch, my DOP again, and we shot that at this guy called Nomis's house, and it's an ode. His house is an ode to Slade. There's like a love letter to Slade in there. He's got like old costumes in there. He's got like old posters that he's just plastered on the wall everywhere, and it's a massive house that we filmed this Christmas song in with Terrorvision, and that was an amazing experience.
So he's got a Slade. He's got a Slade themed house. Do tell me.
He's got a Slade themed house.
Do tell me, when you go in his house, is it like Christmas every day?
It's Christmas every day. It really is. No, it's not as bad as that. But honestly, his house is brilliant. I mean, Nom and his partner, his missus, and they travel around to gigs like you wouldn't believe. Before the pandemic, they must have gone to about, I don't know, 100 gigs a year easily, all over the shop, and they'd go, do 5 on the trot. So when I met them, I met them on the Terrorvision tour, as well as some other awesome, loads of awesome people on there. Danny Fletcher, really, really cool people. But they were all just doing every single gig. So they went from Glasgow. They did about 6 or 7 shows, and they do that religiously. So I feel for them. Out of most people that have kind of, lost things, in the pandemic, loved ones obviously aside, I feel for them because they were out every bloody week. They were amazing. They were my heroes. Absolute heroes.
And it's, it's people like that are going to be so grateful for the movies that you've made. I mean, I noticed on the Terrorvision documentary on IMDb had 21 reviews and an average score of 9.1. I mean, that's...
Oh, really? Excellent.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happens when fans get involved in projects like this, because, you know, it's done from the right perspective. And the way it always amazes me that even now, how little record companies have learned about dealing with bands, how little movie companies have learned about dealing with artistic projects. You know,
completely.
Always having the wrong departments in the room. You know, the money men, the marketing people, and funnily enough, it's quite apt that Zack Snyder's Justice League has come out this week. 4 years after it was ripped, taken away from, longer than that, taken away from him at his weakest moment and basically destroyed. And he puts a four hour version out X amount of years later, and people are going absolutely crazy about it, saying how brilliant it is. And I love that, because it's basically a big middle finger to the marketing department.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because films like that, they don't want you to like them before they start. So, even before you actually watch anything, they've judged it already. You know what I mean? So it takes somebody... I was watching, for my sins, Batman versus Superman the other night, and I really enjoyed it. I was enjoying it. I wasn't like... I just watched it. I didn't expect anything from it, to be honest, but the scenes of Batman in it were amazing. Like, really. He's up there. Affleck is... apart from Adam West, of course, he's my favourite Batman now.
Well, the scene at the end of Justice League, the new version, like there's an epilogue, and there's a clip with him and the Joker where the Joker's offering him a truce, and it's just brutal. Honestly, it's amazing, wow. And yeah, Affleck has definitely nailed it.
Yeah, completely.
And I know guitarist in Acid Rain, who's got a Batman tattoo and is also a filmmaker himself. It was just like, after watching that, I just want a solo Affleck Batman movie. It's got to happen.
It should do, really. I mean, the way he fought as well, he's a brute. He's brutal. He really is. I love him. I thought he was brilliant. I didn't like Bale, though, to be honest. Never liked Christian Bale shooting out. I've had many an argument over that. But yeah, Affleck for me was definitely the one.
Well, we've slightly gone on a little tangent there, but
a bat tangent.
But do you know what? It's going to take us, a bat tangent. Yeah, it's going to take us along to the fact that you've worked on a few movies that I'm a fan of, but especially Moon, way back in the day.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah, definitely.
For me, the movie that brought Sam Rockwell to real, prominence, but also obviously it was Duncan Jones' first movie, wasn't it?
I think it was. Yeah, I remember him in the cutting room. Nick Gaster was the editor. We set that up at Shepperton. That's when I was an engineer, an avid engineer. That was my job.
Right.
So I'd set up editing equipment for the likes of Paul Knight and loads of other editors as well. And Nick Gaster was one of our regulars, and we set Moon up, and you knew that was special straight off the bat. As soon as you saw, a couple of frames in the edit suite, it looked amazing. And Duncan Jones was in there all the time. He did not leave that cutting room. He was just so into what he was doing with Nick. It was incredible to see. So every now and then I'd get a bollocking because the Avid went down or the network went down, and you have to go in there and you'd get most times when I saw editors, they were pissed off because their equipment was down. So, but apart from that, you did get the sense that, in some of these cutting rooms, there were, something really special, was going on. And Moon was definitely up there.
I'm now, I give with one hand, and now I'm going to take away with the other, because we've just talked about something there that you knew was very special, and I get that, because that translates to the musician in me, where when you're working on something that's good, when you've got something.
Yeah.
Definitely. But the opposite is true as well, and when you're working on a turkey. Now, as a band, you just chuck it and go, we're not doing that. But with a movie, you can be halfway through and you're working on a turkey, but it is what it is. You just got to get to the end and learn from the experience.
I can see where this is going.
Yeah, you know, you know where this is going, don't you?
This is going. Go on.
In my top 3 worst movies I have ever seen, I drove away from this movie, punching the steering wheel of my car, shouting, "Why, Guy Ritchie? Why?"
Interesting. I wasn't going to go down that road. What are you? Are you on about Revolver?
Definite top 3 worst movies I have ever seen.
Fuck no, man! I love that film. I'm going to stand against you there.
Oh my!
I love it. Well, I thought you were going to talk about Die Another Day there. In which case, I was like, yeah, I know it's shit. But no, Revolver's a wicked film, man. Watch that again.
Oh, well, to be fair, I'd watch it again, but on one condition. Guy Ritchie watched it with me, because I have actually watched a section of it with director's commentary. And it's quite clear that a guy like myself doesn't know what the movie is about. And
it's so all the 3.
Yeah. I mean, I did not get on with that. My girlfriend fell asleep during it, and I went to nudge her to wake her up, and I just went, actually, do you know what? No,
I'll leave her.
Yeah, I'm going to leave you to it. You got the better deal here. But,
oh man, no, I love that film. I really did.
Fair enough.
And you know what? It's one of those things that I can't actually pinpoint it and tell you why, because it confuses the hell out of me when I watch it. But I just like it. There's something about it. Statham is awesome in that. He's got some great monologues. Ray Liotta is a nutter in it. You know, there's Andre 3000. It's definitely it's Kabbalah. You know, it's a Kabbalah fest, a gangster Kabbalah fest. Is what I would call that. But it's great. You know, I loved it.
Oh well, look, you know, and that's the thing. Music, movies, whatever. It's all art, and you know, yeah, exactly. There's no right, there's no wrong. There's just opinion. There's just how you feel about something.
That's just like your opinion, man.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, well, you know, everybody has their their own opinions. I mean, now we actually have people who have their own facts as well, but that's another podcast.
That's another thing.
That's another podcast entirely. But with art, that's the beautiful thing about it, is that it is just opinion. You can't ever have somebody who is right, because there's no such thing as right or wrong.
But then with the internet, you know, obviously that breeds it. I mean, I've been working on a film for 4 years, which we're at the last stages of completing that now, and that's about the most polarising band in the world. You love them or you absolutely hate them, and that's we explore those themes in that, of like what's right, what's wrong, whose opinion matters, and everything else. And yeah, that's been an interesting ride, I have to say.
So what? And that sounds insane. What's that?
It's a band. It's a Nickelback. So basically, I've been working with them for 4 years.
Bloody hell! Really?
Yeah. And that's crazy. Honestly, those guys are awesome. And I've gone in and met them. You know, obviously met them all, worked with them. Stayed at Chad's house a few times. Got pretty next with him a few times, and we've shot this over 4 years. And it is, you know, it's a great little film. It's about how they started up, and you know, obviously the fallout of being the most hated band in the world, and everything else. And it's been a long process, but it's been needed, because it's one of those films that there's just, you know, layers have been added onto that as we've gone through. So I'm well excited for that to come out as well. I really am.
That does sound pretty incredible. I mean, funnily enough, I know I'm trying to think. There's somebody I know who's a big friend of Chad's and kind of like a defender of his, who you kind of wouldn't expect. Awesome. But yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that he's very kind of accepting of who he is and where he is.
Yeah, I mean, he's the most generous man I've ever met as well. He, you know, if you're in his company, he can't do enough for you. He really can't. He's so generous and so lovely. He's got a heart of gold in him. You know what I mean? They all have. They're an amazing band. You know what I mean? It's like, I was not a fan, you know, before I got into them, before I started the film, and then I went into all the albums, and I kind of fell in love with them, fell in love with their stuff, and just their story as well. And they're awesome. They're really cool guys, man. And yeah, that film's going to be very special when that comes out as well.
Yeah, that's
complete polar opposites, right?
Yeah, it's a really kind of bizarre sort of story as well, because it's. Well, all three are. I mean, you were doing Terrorvision, who were coming back and doing this anniversary tour, and then you've got the Life of Agony story, which is unique and unlike any other, and then the Nickelback story is unique and unlike any other, but for very different reasons. Yeah,
completely. Meme central.
It's kind of mad. How did you end up getting in with Nickelback? Was it Pushy Lee again, was it?
Well, no, it wasn't the same as Life of Agony or Terrorvision, but Terrorvision did help, weirdly enough, because there's a friend of mine called Des Paul, who runs a production company called Want Some Media, and he contacted me and said, "You've just done that Terrorvision doc, can I borrow it, can I have a look at it?" And then basically he introduced me to a producer, Ben Jones, that was asked to go to Canada to film this, to film like almost, I think it was Feed the Machine was coming out at the time. So it was more a history, like a band history. It was like the albums and everything else, like one of those behind the music things. But we went out there and shot it, and it quickly turned into something completely different. And 4 years later, that's where we are now. So it's not really around the music again. Yeah, again, we delve more into their families and those guys. But then obviously where, you can't get away from it, they were the most played band in the 90s, in the noughties.
Yeah.
In America, every 3.2 minutes, How You Remind Me was played.
Bloody hell.
At a certain point. Every 3.2 minutes, somewhere in America.
Wow.
Crazy. They were played more than the Beatles, more than Zeppelin, more than the Stones in the noughties.
That's that song broke one of Elvis's records as well, didn't it?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I remember hearing at the time that it was like I think it broke an airplay record that had been held by since Elvis.
Mad.
Yeah,
mad.
Yeah, there you go. Look that one up. Unless I'm talking utter shit, you might spend all day searching the internet going, "That lying bastard."
That quote, that I'm going to put it in the film. No, he told me it's going in. It's Elvis. We can reference Elvis.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
You can ring Chad. You're a modern day Elvis, mate.
Chad, yeah, definitely. But not bad for like four guys from Hannah.
Well, no.
Hannah was like this two. I went to Hannah. We went with them when they played a gig there as their old band. They were in a covers band called Village Idiot, which is brilliant. And then they went back to play a few songs there. So I went with Ben and my DOP again, Lynch, and we went to Hannah, and it was like a population of under 3,000 there. And yeah, cause they love that band. They love that's a family community out there. So there's a sign when you drive into Hannah, it says, Hannah, proud to be the home of Nickelback. You drive in there, and then there's all the album covers on I think it's a sports hall. They've done these massive kind of, graphics of every single album cover.
Wow.
Yeah, and they were lovely people as well. They really were. The people at Hannah are awesome. Good to see them in their home environment as well, where they came from.
And was it kind of different, the fact that that was a band that you were sort of that you were called up to work with, as opposed to badgered and were a fan of and wanted to work with?
Yeah, it was. But then the good thing is, everything's kind of all dovetailed into each other. The further I got into making films, every single film has influenced the other. So where I spent a lot more time working on Life of Agony for a while, and then I went back into Nickelback, everything's all kind of, all gelled together. So the films have kind of definitely weirdly influenced each other, and I think, that will come across as well. And yeah, again, that's another film that I'm super proud of. It's, having, an immediate disconnect from them, but then actually becoming a fan and a champion for them as well. I'll listen to anyone slating off anyone if it's valid. You know what I mean? And sometimes it is valid, and sometimes it's not. Doesn't matter either way. It's just your opinion, man. You know what I mean? But I will definitely, I've definitely become a champion for them since working for them. That's not just because I've been working on it. It's because I get it.
Yeah.
And I identify with their story as well, and what they've gone through, and the people they are, and the people they've become.
And having gone through everything that they've gone through, and you're being the most played, being the most hated, it's, I mean, that's a real tough place to be, because ultimately you're kind of in that position where we all want the acclaim of our peers. Do you know what I mean? We all want to be, but also we all want to be popular, and we all want to be, sell records and get to do things. And but it's rare that you get a band who gets such an extreme acceptance on one side and such an extreme reaction on the other of it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look. Obviously when they came out, the internet was kicking off. You know what I mean? It was all these different elements like MySpace and Facebook and Twitter and everything else. And that was the advent of social media. I think if that was 4 years earlier, it would have been another band that would have got it in the neck, so to speak, to begin with. I think they were just in that right and wrong place at the same time.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of one of aspect of it, but I think it was almost it's a perfect storm. There's that aspect, and then there's the how you remind me aspect, and those two married together that's kind of your perfect storm, really.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that was one of those songs, wasn't it? That was, it was like the Bryan Adams. It was like the Wet, Wet, Wet. It was those singles that just seemed to be, in your face for a long, 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 long time.
Yes.
And as much as that track was a massive guilty pleasure night, I love the track, but yeah, after a while, you did get a bit, all right, enough.
Two great and very and very unflattering comparisons, but absolutely spot on.
It's true though, it's like, they'd be the first to admit that as well. But then with that, that success, then, they just went around the world like a storm, didn't they? And then All the Right Reasons is one of the, biggest selling albums of all time.
Yes.
It's, and that had like five singles off there, and Rockstar, I love Rockstar.
Well,
rightly or wrongly.
I love it. You've hit on the Nickelback song I like, and they're one of those bands where I think it's like you can say what you like about them and you can properly hate them, but ultimately, deep down, there will be at least one song where you go, actually, I quite like that. And for me, Rockstar is
Nickelback.
And for me, Rockstar's that track, and I think what makes that track is the video.
Yeah, the video is awesome.
It's absolutely brilliant, because it's so tongue-in-cheek, and it's so brilliantly done, because you've got a bunch of rock stars singing about being a rock star, and all of them are clearly loving it, And
do you think that paved the way for TikTok? That video, it's very TikToky, isn't it, for its time?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that video influenced the Chinese government to create TikTok.
You never know.
Yeah,
stranger things happen at sea.
Yeah, and sneak onto all our phones and steal all our information.
Nickelback.
Maybe that video was the virus that started that particular disease. They're just one of those bands where I think, people won't admit it, but there is always one song, and Rockstar is that song for me, without a doubt.
I think Photographs was something one track I really fell in love with those lyrics are really they're to the bone. You know what I mean, about their town and growing up and everything else. And it's the lyrics in that are amazing. And it's like, I think anyone that's missed their hometown, would definitely get something from that track. It's I love that track. It's one of those things that my playlist has grown now from that, and more of it, more music, I say.
Well, you've done me a favour there, because now I've got to dig that song out as well as Broken Valley after we finish speaking. So that's extended my playlist as well. So I appreciate that. No, not at all. And but are you are you developing a niche here? Because, you know, you've got TerrorVision, you've got Life of Agony, you've got, I mean, Nickelback that's big hitters there. I mean, TerrorVision and Life of Agony are big in their own circles, but Nickelback, that's huge. Yeah. Is that now in the back of your mind? Can that be a huge calling card for maybe developing this and, you know, working with more bands and bigger bands?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, absolutely. And not necessarily big. I think it's just, you know, look, it's all about the story. It's not, you know, one of my favourite docs is Searching for Sugar Man, you know. Another favourite is Ginger Baker. You know, there are, you know, it's not about the success or the record sales of a band. It's about the journey they've been on, or, you know, the personal journey is what makes the story, you know, and that is it. You know what I mean? You could talk about, it'd get very boring if you know, that whole film was talked about record sales and how this was recorded and then what happened there. It's like, I don't care. You know, I want to know how it felt.
Yeah,
you know,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. That was the band member in me, because of course what you want to do is you always want to be playing that next bigger thing, that next bigger venue, etc. But you know, of course, you're absolutely right. I mean, look at the Anvil story, a legendary documentary about a band many people had never heard of when it came out.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, you know, it's all about, it's about stories at the end of the day, and that's what, you know, I love getting to know people, and I love getting to know what makes them tick, because that works in a weird way, kind of, you know, crystallizes how I tick.
Yeah.
You know, I'll probably ask certain questions that I want to know because they resonate with me as much as I need to get information about certain different things, but inherently these things have got to resonate with me as a human. And for me to be, you know, that interested in it, where I could look myself in a room for 14 hours a day, editing stuff and looking for threads and everything, you know, it's you've got to be invested.
Yes,
in it. You can't just do that, you know, not on a project like this, not on these scales. You have to be invested.
Well, again, it comes back to art, doesn't it? And ultimately, art is born from passion, and if you don't have a passion for the project, you shouldn't be on the project.
Exactly.
Yeah. And one movie that springs to mind, there's a band called Descendants who are absolutely awesome, and there's a documentary on their life called Filmage. And that's the word film and the word age, but all as one word, Filmage. Yeah. Check it out, mate. Check it out. It's an incredible story. They're an incredible band. Influenced loads of people. The guys in Blink 182 helped finance it to get it made, because in the singer from Blink 182's words, we've been ripping them off for 20 years. So we really should be helping get, you know, shining a light on their story and the band. Everyone's in it, Dave Grohl, you name it. And it is if you're into music and you're into music docs, which obviously you are, then also for me, 90 minutes, you can't beat the runtime. Yeah, it's
not the Snyder Cut, that's for sure.
But it's the rule of three, though, isn't it? You know, you've got a 3-act structure. Those 3 acts should be
three boxes.
Yeah, 30 minutes or 30 minutes. The rule of 3 again. So 3 acts, 30 minutes. It's 90 minutes. The Filmage is great, mate. You will enjoy it. There's some great little bits of animation in it as well. And it is honestly, watch it. All right.
I will take that out. I've got nothing on later on, so that could be my evening film before the TV gets taken over. Put my line in the sand right now.
Oh, well, dude, look, if you do that, text me or something after you've watched it, because
I will.
Either slagging me off or thanking me. But my feeling is that you'll enjoy it, and then that will act as your gateway into the band that is Descendants, who are legendary. Without Descendants, there's no Green Day, and without Green Day, there's none of that shit that happened in the 90s with them and bands of their ilk. So that's where, you know, that's the kind of influence they've had on that sphere of music.
Interesting. All right, I will dig that out today, sir.
Cool, brilliant. All right, mate. Well, look, I think that seems like the right place to call it a day. We've done an hour and 20 minutes. I think you've earned a break.
Bloody hell. Yeah, have a coffee, definitely.
Oh, absolutely, definitely a coffee. And the sun's come out here as well, so it might even be coffee outside for me. Wow!
Oh,
hey,
nice. Let's do it, mate.
What a treat! Well, look, Leigh, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out and sharing your Sunday. It's really appreciated. I'll let you know when this is coming out. And well, look, mate, this has been an absolute blast. A great way to spend a Sunday morning. I can't thank you enough.
Yeah,
Leigh.
I agree. Thank
you very much.
Brilliant, man. Nice one, mate. Well, look, take care and speak to you soon.
Hey, check that Filmage movie out, and I want a text after you've watched it. All right.
I will keep you posted, my man.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Nice one, mate. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. That was fucking great. Yeah, I don't like to blow my own trumpet there, but that wasn't me blowing my own trumpet. That was me just going, yay! That was so much fun. I really enjoyed talking to Leigh. As you can hear, I hope it was as much fun to listen to as it was to do. I know it's a cliche, but I really do mean it. That was such an enjoyable way to spend a Sunday morning. And sometimes when you're doing these things, you do feel like you just hit it off with the person that you're speaking to. And I really, really felt like Leigh and I just hit it off as two huge fans of Life and Agony. And I haven't seen the movie yet. I cannot wait to see it. I know it's going to absolutely blow me away. I cannot wait to see it. And I'm so glad to see it getting recognition already. It's going to be reviewed on the Kermode and Mayo movie podcast, which is it's just about the biggest movie podcast in the UK. Been going about 20 years, so that's brilliant. And I just hope they get as much success as possible from this. I hope it reaches the people it needs to reach, because it's they've got such an interesting and powerful story that this is going to be, as you've heard over the course of the last hour a bit, this is just going to be incredible. I can't wait to see it. No band deserves to have their story told more than Life of Agony. I'm really, really pleased that it's being done. And all us Life of Agony fans owe Leigh a debt of gratitude. And also, it can't have been easy for the band to open themselves up and to be subject to the kind of scrutiny that this kind of documentary would have put them under. So for that alone, I think is an incredible achievement. I just can't wait to see it. I really can't. And I hope to do some interviews, potentially with members and potentially another one with Leigh, after the documentary's been out a while, just to get some kind of feedback on some feedback on the feedback, really, and how it's gone, but also to talk about the movie now that I've seen it as well, and we can sort of get into it a little bit deeper. That might end up being an episode of Movie Bollocks, who knows? But anyway, look, I really hope you've enjoyed this kind of special edition of Talking Bollocks, although it's just coming out as a regular one, because I love you guys so much. I wanted to give you something a little bit special. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everybody listening, it's been a pleasure. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to catching up with you another time for another episode of Talking Bollocks.